And that every prophet had that between their shoulders. This is a seal from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testifying that these are prophets.
One quick question regarding the seal. You said every prophet has a seal, but what we learn is that only the prophets also become...
I don't know. Allahu alam. That's what is it. Every messenger had this between their shoulders. Allahu alam. I will double check on that, but that's the knowledge I have. So, and then after that, he got these signs. He said, and I went to Arabia. I headed to Arabia, and there were people from the tribe of Bani Kalb, and I asked them to take me with them to Arabia. I didn't know how to travel to Arabia, and they said, well, come on with us. And on the way, they sold me as a slave. They took me prisoner, and they took my belongings, and they sold me as a slave. And they sold me as a slave in Khaybar to a Jewish man. And then that man sold me into another man from Bani Qurayza in Yathrib. And then in Yathrib, when I went as a slave to Yathrib, I saw all the signs that that man told me about as the city where the Prophet comes to. That this is the city that the Prophet will settle to. And then I became a slave, and I didn't know about the Prophet because my master, the owner of Salaman al-Farisi, was working him hard, was making him do he was a Jewish man, he wanted to just get the Prophet, and he was working him so hard, he didn't hear about anything. And then one day he said, I was up at the palm tree getting the dates, and I heard my master saying that Bani Qayla, and the Jews called the Aus al-Khazraj al-Arab in Yathrib, they call them Bani Qayla, which is one of their grandmothers, and it was a derogatory term they would call them. So he said, Bani Qayla, they got a man from Mecca, and they say he is a prophet. And he said, I almost fell from that palm tree. And I came down very quickly and asked him, where is that man? And then my master beat me. And he said, you are a slave. You don't go back to your work and worry not about these issues. These are issues for your masters. And he said, at night, I had saved some gifts and some things and some food, and I took it and I went to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I came to him, and he was with his companions. And I said, Ya Rasulullah, I knew you're strangers and you just came to this town and you may be hungry. And I have some charity money. And I want some charity food. And I want you to eat from it and give your companions. And then he said, Rasulullah accepted that. He took it from me and he put it and he asked his companions to eat. But he didn't touch it. And then Salman said, this is one. The first sign that he does not eat from charity. And then he said, the next day I brought the rest of the food. And I told the Prophet, well, now this is a gift. This is a gift for you, Rasulullah. And then Rasulullah took some of it and ate it. And then he asked his companion to share it with him. And he said, this is the second one. And then he became a Muslim. And we know the story after that with Salman al-Farisi. He was the one that asked Rasulullah, he gave advice to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to dig the trench at the Ahzab battle. So the whole entire stage were getting set for the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even the people that we call the fortune tellers in Arabia, and we call al-Kahin, the ones that have companions of al-Jinn. They had jinn companions with them. They knew about the Prophet from the jinn, about the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is in al-Bukhari. This is hadith. And just to digress a little bit here, when we talk about as-Sirah, there is some history, there is some hadith, and there is some Quran. And I will inshallah try to indicate which is which. Because a lot of the things that are history are not strongly their history. They're written by historians. The authority and the narration is not as strong as hadith. But when we have something with hadith that is narrated in al-Bukhari or al-Muslim, then inshallah I will indicate that to indicate the authenticity of that source. So this about the fortune teller and the jinn, this is in al-Bukhari. And it is hadith from Umar ibn al-Khattab. And that was after he became successor, after he became Khalifa to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was a man that used to be a fortune teller, that used to be a kahin in the days of ignorance, and his name was Sawad ibn Qarib. And Sawad had a companion of al-Jinn that would come to him and that would tell him about things that are happening, and that would become when he tells people what is going on in different city, they would think that he knows the unknown. He would know al-ghayb. All he had is basically what we know today as CNN. He would have something that he would have direct broadcast from al-jinn telling them about what's going on in other places. So anyway, Sawad ibn Qarid, he had a jinn companion in al-Jahiliyyah, and then he was walking in Medina after Islam, and Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, may Allah be pleased with Umar, asked him, "Aren't you Sawad ibn Qarid?" He said, "Yes, I am Sawad." He said, "Aren't you a fortune teller?" And Sawad became angry. He said, "Wallahi ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, nobody called me that since I became a Muslim." That was an offensive thing to him, because he is a Muslim. And Umar said, "Well, don't be offended. I was an idol worshipper. What I did was even more wrong than what you were doing. So I didn't mean to offend you." See, this is Amir al-Mu'mineen apologizing. See the manners of these people. And then he said, "Can you tell me what your companion of al-Jinn was telling you about the Ba'tha, about the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" He said, 3 nights in a row, when the time of Ba'tha, my companion will come to me and tell me poetry about the coming of the Prophet. And this is all narrated in Al-Bukhari, and it is long, the poetry is long, so I will spare you that. And then he said, finally, at the time of Al-Ba'tha, at the time of when the message was delivered, he said, "Inna shayateen qad sakatat." The devils and the evil spirits now is shut silent. They're silent today from maghluba. They're defeated with the new message that came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, and then Umar asked him, "Do you see your companion anymore?" And he said, "No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, since I started reading the Quran, gave me Quran as alternative in guidance. And this is what I rely on today, and this is the best guidance to me." And this is in Al-Bukhari. So now we go to the events of Al-Ba'tha. We talked about the signs, we talked about the stage being set, people yearning for this message, knowing the wrong ways. There's no religion that you could follow and your heart be content with. Your heart would settle to it. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was around 40 years of age at that time. And he lived an ordinary life in Mecca. He was, as we know, a married man to a very honorable and rich woman in Quraysh, Khadija. He had children. He was happily married. He had a very settled social life. He was a noble man in his tribe. And it seemed like he would have everything that a man in Mecca at that time would wish for, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had it. And he should be the happiest man in Mecca, as much blessings as he had. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to stay silent for a long time. And he was thinking too much all the time. And then 3 years before the Ba'tha, he started going up to a small cave 2 miles away from Mecca, from the center of Mecca. And that cave was on a mountain of light, Jabal al-Nur. And the name of the cave was Hira. And he would just sit there and think and ponder about the way to worship, about why we are here, who is God, how to worship God.
يا خير خلق الله يا خير خلق الله يا خير خلق الله محمد